Remember those gold-plated Pokemon slabs from 1999? If you're not old enough, let's just say it's still the best thing you could have ever purchased from a Burger King. And with the exception of a few stickers and a Pokemon card set, the Pokemon Company hasn't released anything with real gold to the masses since. And that includes merch dealing with Gholdengo. You know, the Pokemon that's completely made of gold. So of course I knew I couldn't miss out on the golden opportunity to make the first golden Gholdengo. And while I'm at it, I might as well give Gimmighoul the project it deserves as well, right?
But this isn't gonna be cheap. Especially with gold being at an all-time high, my dollar just isn't gonna go as far. But my dollar does go pretty far in Japan, which is why if you're looking for Pokemon goods that won't cost you a fortune, I would recommend today's sponsor, ZenMarket. It's a service that gives you access to products from over 10,000 Japanese stores. Because with ZenMarket, you can search and buy for products on a bunch of different Japanese marketplaces without needing a Japanese address. And through them, I found out that the Pokemon companies kind of stepped up their game. There's this trap-inch stapler, a Sizzlipede foldable chair, and people have been asking me why I haven't made a Knuckle salt shaker. Well, it's because they already made it over in Japan. Oh, and I also found this Pikachu coin bank that I'll be using later in the video. So once you've purchased everything you've wanted, they'll hold it in their warehouse until you're ready to have everything shipped to your door. And hey, if you click on the link below and use code BIGRIGGRADES, you'll get 1,000 Zen points, which is our little code word for 1,000 yen, capiche? And it takes 1,000 coins to turn a Gimmighoul into a Gholdengo. Coincidence? Yeah, I just need a way to segue back into the video. Let's get to making Gimmighoul.
Now, if you've played Scarlet and Violet, you probably know that Gimmighoul has both a roaming and a chest form. Now, you can find the roaming Gimmighouls throughout the game, and once you get 1,000, you can evolve the chest form into Gholdengo. And so I could just print off a bunch of roaming Gimmighouls, hide it in my friends' homes, and call it a day. And I did end up doing that, but I think the real project lies with the chest form. You see, when I was roaming ZenMarket, I found
This little guy. And what happens if we put a little coin here?
And I'm kind of tired of Pikachu having the spotlight all the time, especially when the real coin chest goblin is Gimmighoul.
Now we just have to figure out how to swap you out with Gimmighoul. So let's crack you open. Okay, let's see what we have inside. We have this Pikachu head. A little stopper on it. We have the button. We have this arm, which is like all of the electronics. Can I just pop this arm off? I might cheat this real quick. Look what you made me do, Pikachu. Ugh! Finally. The goal is just to design something that can fit around there. We'll spray paint some of this gold and we should be good for this. And for this, Pikachu, let me in. Not by the plastic on my chinny chin. Oh no, my chin! This should be workable. Time to start measuring. And before I get back to modeling, you might be asking yourself, how am I gonna make it even sound like Gholdengo? Well, this is meant for like a greeting card where you open it and it plays like a funny sound that you can put into it, but we're gonna be repurposing it for this thing.
So for the head, I have this ripped Gimmighoul model from an anonymous source, and I followed this Blender tutorial to get all the facial features on it. Then I bought this Gimmighoul chest model from Shigeru, and reconfigured it to work with the coin bank. And after spray painting, collecting a few Gimme coins, and printing out the little guy himself, it was time to Gimme Go.
Okay, so in this box, I have the sound thingy-majiggy. I just need to hook up this board to the existing speaker in here, so let's get that done first. It seems like I lost my blue silicon mat, so let's hope I don't burn the place down. Okay, so this thing's a light sensor, so when I cover it up and then reveal it, we should hear the Gimmighoul sound clip. Hey, there you go. Now I should just be able to glue this guy right here. And the head's gonna go right in here.
And off screen, I printed and painted the rest of the chest, assembled it together, and shoved the coin box inside. Perfect fit. But will everything actually work together?
Oh Gimmighoul, will you accept this humble offering of a single Gimmighoul coin?
Oh yeah, this is going to be my piggy bank forever. But I think it's time to move on to what you all came here for.
To start, let's look into our options for making this actually gold. And to get this out of the way, no, this will not be solid gold. I mean, a few years ago, Linus Tech Tips made a video where he made a solid gold Xbox controller, and how much did that cost him?
$87,500.
You know, I usually say I'll try anything once, but I make exceptions to avoid bankruptcy proceedings. So what other options are out there? Well, what about painting it with some expensive gold paint or a metallic gold rub? Well, unfortunately, none of these actually contain real gold. And if I'm not going to spend $60K on this project, I can at least make sure it's $24K, meaning the gold is real gold. Next option, using gold leaf. You see, gilding is the process of taking an object or an art piece and covering it with really thin sheets of gold. So unlike Reddit gold gilding, it's actually worth something. The issue is this process can get a bit messy and the finish can sometimes look a bit cheap. But this still might be a viable option. But there is one more technique we could use. Let me introduce you to the world of electroplating. As explained by the 3D printing channel Hendrik, you take a 3D print, submerge it in some electrolytes, put some copper inside, and zap the whole thing. And then you repeat the process with gold. And while he makes it look super simple, it's anything but that. Let's let Thomas from Made with Layers explain.
It's a huge amount of work to tweak the process and to get results out of it that are useful. Just to get started, you're going to need probably $200 to $300 worth of gear between, a lab supply, a stirrer, the copper paint, electrolytes, the different ones you're going to be using. Anode material copper isn't cheap.
But I still really wanted to go with this process because just look how clean it looks. Just something magical about it, man. So I knew I now had to do something incredibly challenging. Incredibly intimidating. I was going to have to cold call industrial manufacturing companies.
There were a handful of companies that I called, and let me tell you, they were very protective of their processes.
I was hoping if it would be possible to also find a way to be there at the facility while this is happening and possibly film the process.
Kind of proprietary. I mean, the chemistry is really proprietary. I don't know how much you could actually film.
Our processes are considered, proprietary, so filming it with, it's a process that takes several days. It's not like something like you're going to come here and we're going to dip it and it's going to magically have metal on it. It doesn't work like that.
But thankfully, there was still at least one company that was willing to do the plating job.
Yes, okay, I think this might work. Okay, this might work.
The only issue is that they wanted... So I guess it's time for me to do this myself, right?
Well, I started messaging a census on Discord, the person who inspired this whole thing with his electroplated Garvantula and Stunfisk. And at the end of the day, he recommended that I should probably go with the professionals. And the professionals, so they wouldn't let me down, right?
Well, first, it's my job to actually make the Gholdengo. So I'm modifying this model from ZZZ Monkey ZZZ. And for print material, the guy on the phone said to use
like platable grade ABS out there. Just stay away from the PLA. The melting point is too low.
So I'm using one of the strongest ABS materials out there, polycarbonate ABS. And not only does it need an enclosure for controlled temperatures, but I also have to exhaust the fumes out. So now I have a setup that looks like I just left my wife and kids for a life of crime.
And this was not easy to print. So I'd like to take a moment now to remember all the Gholdengos that, for one reason or another, are no longer with us.
In the arms of the angel, fly away from here, from this dark, cold hotel room.
Anyways, here's the Gholdengo that's all sanded down and ready to be shipped off. And while we wait for the 3 to 5 days of processing, it's time to work on the surfboard. For those of you who don't know, Gholdengo uses a golden surfboard to float on water, and sometimes on land as well. Yeah, Gholdengo is not beating the 90s cheese stick mascot allegations. So I heavily modified the model so it could hold 2 large magnets. This way it can float like my Magnezone and Metagross projects. And now we are going to learn how to gild, because I was not about to pay a few $100s to make the board gold. And also it's flat, so it should be pretty easy to work with. This is where you have to be careful too, because it turns out the gilding kit I bought actually came with fake gold leaf, so I used it to practice and then bought the real stuff. And man, the real stuff is hard to work with. It's like if you took a butterfly wing and squashed it to make it even thinner. Like, I have never worked with something this difficult before. And before you knew it, I was out.
Is that it? Am I already out? Ooh, that was a lot of money.
Turns out for the second pack I bought, you actually directly apply it to the surface, so that made things a bit easier, but just as messy. Like, if you see gold flecks embedded into this desk in future videos, you'll know why. But eventually, I got the job done. Not perfect, a little scrappy, but I'm pretty happy with it. Now, where's my Gholdengo? Okay, so here I am this morning, just sipping my coffee, having a good time, and I got an email from the company saying that they could not complete the order because my 3D print had issues. I guess they didn't like that I glued together 3 parts together, had it printed out that way. I don't know. I had it sanded down. I thought, you know, there were no holes or any layer gaps or anything like that, but I guess the engineers over there disagreed, so yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do now. I guess I'm just gonna have to go home and go back to the drawing board now. So now I had to decide if it was time to actually go with plan B. So now I have to weigh the pros and the cons of switching from professional electroplating to amateur gilding. So for pros, we have lasts longer. Apparently, when you gild something, the gold is going to last longer than when you electroplate it. So that's good. We also have cheaper. I will be spending a lot less money, and that's a good thing. But over in the cons section, we have hard to cover small details, which means it might look bad, which isn't great, but to that I say, just get good. So now I needed to get obsessed with gilding and fast. So I researched, read articles, conducted my own tests, and learned exactly how to get the best and smoothest finish possible. I even went out and got a fancy brush made out of squirrel hair. But I do have to say, nothing was more helpful than this video, called Oil Gilding from Ruth Tappan.
Now, what would happen if you put that oil size on top of a porous surface is that it would air dry, but it would also soak in to that porous surface. It won't stick properly because you haven't got enough oil on that surface.
Thanks, Ruth. You're my hero. So it was time to coat everything in some resin to make the surface as smooth as possible. And the next day, I spent hours adding leaf after leaf, dusting everything down, repeating the process as many times as it took. And as I started to finally finish up, I reflected on this whole project. All the research I did, all the ups and downs, and of course all the money I spent. And now I was just left with a single question. Well, I'll let you be the judge of that. But no matter what your opinion is, thanks for watching. And special thanks to the executive level patrons: Jameson Zabalos, Evan Timmerman, Don Necco, Jimmers, Harley Jean, Pow Pow, Sally and Dave, Zebramang, Marco Carini, and Grandma Watson.